Matt, we are live on YouTube.
Great. So I will call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the
United States of America,
and to the
republic
Republic,
which
which
stands
stands
one
nation
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty, justice for all.
Amen.
for all.
Born and unborn.
Okay, so thank you for everybody for joining us this evening. Welcome to our Zoom meeting, a little different than our public hearings on the budget in the past. So the first thing is we're happy that we're able to get the budget off the ground. Some of the cities and towns have spoken with Jim and I, the town manager and I, and there's all different ways that they do the budgets in different places, and some are having some struggles with the manner in which they do it. So we're happy to get things started. As you all know, tonight we're actually doing the public hearing from the school budget and the first hearing on our actual budget. So that's a little different than in the past. We had those on separate nights. Welcome to the school committee members as well who are here. I see that some are there, and to the department heads, and obviously to the public. So I'm going to ask for same thing that we did with the last council meeting. I'm going to go down the line on the council members. So we have a roll call for our clerk, and Terry Donovan, our clerk, please interrupt me if there's anything minutes wise that you need to get verified or haven't captured, please.
Will do.
Thank you. All right, so first I'll look for a motion to hold a public hearing on the proposed budget for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Jill.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
Okay, so this is vote to open the public hearing on the fiscal year budget. I'm going to go down the line as I have the other evenings. Mr. Lima, first of all in favor? Mr. Lima.
Richard Lima, aye.
Mr. Pugh?
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Murray?
Aye.
Ms. Lawler?
Jill Lawler, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. So the public hearing on the budget is opened, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cummings to give the presentation on the school side of the budget. So Dr. Cummings.
Great. Thank you, Matt. And thank you everyone for this opportunity. I'm going to try to share my screen with you. And so hopefully that will work. Okay, so hopefully everyone have that.
Nice.
Yes, excellent. Okay, well, thank you everyone. And I would like to, first of all, just acknowledge these are just a very different way of doing things. And so while I would certainly prefer to be in person to be able to answer your questions along the way, if there are things that you want to know, try to wave a little bit and, I'll try to stop and address those, but certainly I can address all of your questions at the end of the presentation as well. On behalf of the school committee, we'd like to really thank you for the opportunity to come and talk about our school budget. It seems, and it was quite a while ago that it was approved out of the school committee, and there's a lot that has happened since. So I've included some of those pieces in here today. We do have a great team. And so, I've listed a lot of them here, but certainly Karen Hagan, her work on the budget is, so much appreciated and so excellent. Many of you know Steve Gormley very well and the work that he does, Julio and his work with technology. So we really do have an amazing team on the school side and who works very hard to bring forward a responsible budget every year. And, as a piece of what we try to work on is to be really cognizant of what's happening at the town side. So I just want to thank Jim for his partnership in terms of working with us on the budget and the conversations that we've been having about what's been going on both on the town side and on the school side. So I will just kind of start by saying, our numbers are strong. Our numbers are pretty steady from year to year. And, even in this time where we are doing distance learning, counterintuitively, our attendance is better than it's ever been. So we have about 90% or more of our kids every day logging in and doing work with us in distance learning. And our teachers have done an amazing job. And so really keeping kids engaged, reaching out to families, going out to families. And that's not easy to do. We have well over 1,200 kids. We have, a whole number of students who have special needs. And this list that you have right in here is all of the children that live in Narragansett, and you will see that the bulk of them are in, our schools. We do have students that attend charter schools, and just as a reminder that when a family is at a charter school, it is the school department, it's the town that is responsible for that tuition. So what often happens to us is that families who are enrolled in a charter school may move to an apartment in town, but continue in their enrollment in that charter school. And then the responsibility for that tuition moves from whatever town they were in and is transferred to Narragansett. So we do a lot of residency checks. We do a lot of confirmation that people are really living here. But we are responsible for those tuitions as we go forward. Our tuitions out are, certainly significant, but we also have tuitions in. And I'll go over that in a little bit. So what is the makeup of our students? So before all this happened, and in October, we were at 19% poverty and 19% free and reduced lunch. I will say, we have had a lot of families taking advantage of the lunch program that we've been running since this emergency happened. It fluctuates, but we have had a lot of takers, and we continue to have a lot of takers. And so we're at about 19% poverty when the economy was good. We do very much anticipate that going up in the coming months. We are at about 20% students with disabilities. And so what that means is that we have students who need extra help, extra resources, that type of investment into their learning, so that we can continue to help them as they learn and go forward. So how are we staffed? So we're at about 143 teachers, 27 teacher assistants. We have 25 people who work in transportation. We are different than other districts, whereas other districts contract out their transportation. We obviously keep it in-house, and I can answer questions about that. In our operations, and that's grounds and facilities and maintenance, we're at about 18 people. We have 13 clerical and business, and so that's our school secretaries, that's our business office staff. We're at about 9.5 administrators. We have 5 people in tech support, and thank God we do. After kind of all of that's been happening, they've done an amazing job in terms of keeping us aligned and keeping things going, for a total of 240.5 full-time positions. So how are we doing? And I think one of the things that's really important to remember is that Narragansett is ranked among the best districts in the state year in, year out. And that's not by accident. We've had a lot of great teachers. We've had a lot of investment in the schools by the town and by the community. And we continue to build on those successes from the past. In fact, one of our elementary schools, we just found this out in the last couple of weeks, was one of our elementary schools, our elementary school, R1, was nominated to be a Blue Ribbon school at the national level. And so they've put in their application for that. And we have every expectation they'll be granted that honor this year. So our high school is amongst the best in the state, and in fact is recognized by the AP and by the College Board for the work that they've done in terms of promoting advanced placement classes. As many of you know, we have ever increasing enrollment in our CTE programs. We love the agri-science program, and that is thriving. We also have a computer science program, where it's one of the few computer science programs in the state that allows students to get ISCO certification. Our plumbing program is growing. It's starting to take off, and we're really excited about that. And we have a new education program in partnership with the University of Rhode Island, where students can go through, get advanced standing at URI, And we work closely with the URI School of Education to share their courses, follow their pathway. And that is, again, recognized as one of the premier programs in the state. Other school districts are trying to model after our program in that way. Over the last couple of years, we've focused really hard on our early childhood education. And so that continues to be fully subscribed. And that was a strategic investment by the town and by the school committee to really provide high quality early learning experiences for students. And that is a very popular program. And, you know, our music program is outstanding, as is our athletic program. So really, all in all, our students are doing wonderfully, and we're really able to do that because we have great teachers and great staff, and we focus a lot on hiring very well and on increasing the expertise of our staff that we have. But, you know, there's going to be a lot going on this year, and I want to be sure that, you know, we're not tone deaf to what's happening in the world. And I also want to be really clear that a lot of what I'm putting out here are possibility of what we're going to face in the fall, but we're going to be facing a lot. You know, essentially, our students have been in extremely different learning circumstances for about a third of the year. And, you know, as great as our teachers and our principals have been doing, it is not the same as being in school. And so to get back to school, while we don't have a lot of clarity yet about what that's going to look like, we are already in the process of planning for that. And there's a lot of things that we have to think about. So if you can imagine, you know, we have lots of our students who are very early readers. And so that's a one-to-one and in-person event. And so, you know, if you have a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, or 7-year-old that is an early reader when they were taken out of school, our parents have done a wonderful job with kind of being assisting us with our younger students. But there are going to be a lot of gaps in kids reading. So we're going to be needing to staff up for that. We're going to have to do a lot of curriculum redesign and kind of figure out what did kids hit and what did they miss as they go forward. We don't know what it's going to look like. So it could be anywhere from they're only going to allow 10 kids in a class, to how many kids are you going to be able to put on a bus, to what will the hallways look like, what will the cleaning look like. You know, we have some early indicators that we can start planning for, but we don't know, for example, if we're going to have half the school in one day and half the school in another day. You know, what will all of that look like? And each one of those are going to necessitate changes to staffing, changes to schedules, changes to transportation as we go forward. We're already securing and investing in PPE for staff. You know, we have to make some consideration around medically fragile employees. You know, we have several of them. And right now, we do not have clarity around the level of disaster aid or in what sort of timeliness that will come. So all of that is a giant shadow over the entire budgeting process. And I am recognizing that. So you can ask me questions along the way. The budget presentation that I'm giving is kind of thinking, you know, for the most part about normal times. And then we're going to have to adjust it along the way as we learn more as we go forward. So, you know, we did have a great year last year, you know, and I highlighted a few of those already. But what we need to do is to continue to build on that success. And so we're going to continue, we plan to continue to invest in our full day preschool. You know, that's, again, people are signing up for that. It's a great program. We're seeing a pronounced improvement in the level of preparedness for school for students that are going to our own preschool. And so we really are getting the most bang for our buck out of that. And we're very happy with that program. The Education CTE program in partnership with URI that I mentioned to you before is a one-of-a-kind program in the state, and we're getting a lot of interest in that program. We do have a very deep focus on students' mental health and well-being. That's what Conscious Discipline is about. We've been implementing that in our younger grades, and now more than ever, we are going to need a lot of mental health services and a lot of really stability for our students. We continue to work on our security enhancements. Chief Corrigan has been an incredible partner for us with that. You can't forget about those things when you're dealing with another type of emergency. That continues to be very high on our radar. And we do have a lot going on with construction. Before the pandemic, RIDE was, very focused on school construction. We're hoping that they continue to be and continue to have the resources for that. We are in the midst of an application for our next round of housing aid that will support the facilities within Narragansett. Probably the big focus for that is the auditorium redesign and rehabilitation. That's been a long time coming and really is deeply in need. So you will see when we get to the capital plan that we're devoting a lot of resources for that. We also had a state study of facilities, the Jacobs report, a couple of years ago that helped us identify what we should be looking at, and we continue to build on that. So for us, what does the enrollment projections look like? We are down a few students for next year, and you'll see in our staffing where we did cut staff where it was appropriate. Overall, what you're seeing is that, our high school next year will be the biggest it has been in almost a decade. So we're getting an influx of students into our high school. So we're projecting they're going to be over 475 next year. What we are seeing though is a slight reduction of about one class at the Pierce School and one class at the elementary school. And we have cut one teacher at the Pierce School and one teacher at the elementary school to accommodate for those changes in population. So one thing that we do often get asked is, so who is coming into the school and kind of what programs are they going into? So, as you can see, we are getting a number of students that are coming into all sorts of different programs. So our agri-science program continues to be immensely popular. We do project we'll have 45 out of district students in that program next year. We do continue to get about 29 students per year from Jamestown. That's pretty steady for us every year. The plumbing does continue to grow as the word gets out and students become more comfortable in that. We are getting more education CTE students in. So we do anticipate to have around 95 out of district students at Narragansett High School next year. That is offset by, we do have students that go out of district from us, and that is the nature of education in Rhode Island right now, where students are moving from district to district. We do take in far more than go out, but we do have students that go. North Kingstown, for many of our students, becomes a popular destination for many reasons. They have a very large marching band and a music, career and tech program. And so we do have a number of students that do go into that. And then we have some students that are part of charter schools. And so you can see we have 9 students at Compass, 9 students at Kingston Hill, 2 students at the Green School. And those are all charter schools, and those are all elementary schools. Chariho, North Kingstown, Rogers, and South Kingstown are all high school students. And so again, you can see we're taking in about 95 high school students, but we are losing about 45 students overall to tuition-based programs. So for us, what really goes into the budget considerations, and that really has been the work of the school committee, of Karen, of me, as we went through that process last month. Certainly the cost of our contractual obligations is the number-one driver. And so, you'll see that our salaries are, a little over 1%. Our benefits are up around 4%. The financing of long-term capital improvements, and that is, again, investing in our buildings, investing in our infrastructure so that it doesn't fall apart and cost us more in the long term. We have been a one-to-one district for a long time, and thank goodness we are with all of this happening right now. So we do have a strong commitment to technology. And I will say that we have had, I think, one of the better and more thoughtful responses to this crisis, because we had a lot of the technology in place. So we weren't scrambling, we weren't trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. It was just an extension of a lot of the work that we were doing every day. Continue to invest in our early childhood education and career and tech. You know, we really do see for our youngest learners that this is an incredibly beneficial investment in their long-term learning. Not only is it the right thing to do for children, but it is also an investment in early intervention. And so if we can create early interventions for students where they can get on the right track early in their school career, later on, it's not a larger investment in trying to catch them up and having them struggle through school. And with our CTE program, it is doing an incredible job getting our students ready for college and ready for career. It's also an attraction to students to come to Narragansett and for families to come to Narragansett. That being said, we do have our own obligations. And so when students leave Narragansett, according to RIDE, you know, it costs us around $18,000 a student for every student that leaves us. And so for us, that is a significant tuition obligation. We're not at the same level as some of the other schools, school districts in terms of students leaving, but it is still a significant hit for us. And then finally, you know, we just don't know what our COVID-19 response costs will be. We know they will be there. We know they will be significant, and we do not know what type of aid we're going to get in order to really do that response. You know, one of the hardest pieces of this is that with an emergency, our costs and intensity go up at the very same time that the availability of resources are going down. And so you really find yourself in a pickle. So for us, you know, for our staffing reductions, I just wanted to outline this for you. You know, we are cutting a grade 3. We are also cutting a grade 8. We are making some reductions at the high school and special education. What we are adding is areas that are growing for us in plumbing. We do need some more help in math, in our agri-science program. And one thing that we are very much seeing is a need for some more dyslexia expertise. That seems to be a growing area of need in this area, not just in our district, but across the state. So we do have a reading specialist who has the capacity to do that. So we are shifting her position into that area. In terms of our capital investments, what you will see here is, again, these have been on our capital plan for a long time. You know, at the elementary school, these continue to be upgrades identified in the Jacobs report. So this is, you know, certainly investing in preschool, which we think is critical, doing electrical work, looking at the entrance canopy. So if you can imagine walking into Narragansett Elementary School, that canopy that is there right when you walk in, certainly could use some refurbishing. So we have that on the list this year, and doing some sidewalks and then getting them up to code. Well, we also have very similar pieces at the Pierre Middle School, and this is also getting new lockers for the boys and girls locker rooms, electrical work, and doing some ADA work. And then at the high school is really the big one for us. It's around doing investing in the auditorium rehabilitation, putting a new divider in the gym. That giant wall in the middle of the gym is not working anymore, and doing some control work on our heating system. And of course, we continue to have our cost of transportation, which is our ongoing bus lease. And instead of buying a second bus, we're starting to invest in the vans because of the nature of our population being spread out, as well as needing to transport students to areas like charter schools. So overall, what the school committee approved budget is at $32,381,296. This is an increase from last year of $831,319, an overall increase of 2.63%. What does this look like and how does it break down? Well, certainly the salaries are at 1.23 and employee benefits are at 4.76. And, you know, that is almost 80% of our budget. We are seeing some increase in our other purchase surfaces, and that is often students who have to be tuitioned out. And so if we have a student who has to go to, a outplacement, we are responsible for that. What has been happening to us recently, and we have been trying to work with the Department of Education on this, is that there have been many times where DCYF, for non-educational reasons, will mandate a student to an outplacement, and then the school department is then responsible for paying the full freight for both the outplacement and the education, even though we feel like we could educate them at our school. And so that's been an ongoing issue between schools across Rhode Island and DCYF, and we're hopeful there'll be some resolution for that going forward. So overall, those increases as you go through, all add up to 2.63%. So if you really look at the breakdown of that, you can see that between salaries and benefits, that is the bulk of our cost. Everything else, really is right around a quarter. And a lot of those are not optional pieces that we need to do. We need to have heat, we need to have gas, we need to have oil, and we need to get kids to school. So overall, the increase to our salaries is a little over $200,000. So our teachers are at 1%, plus many of them are on a step increase, and our classified staff is at 1%. We have kept that cost lower because we have reduced several teaching positions. We've realigned other positions for greater efficiency, and we have consolidated a central office position. Our benefits are up. Healthcare costs are up. While we have appropriately funded our self-insured program over time, we do anticipate, and the projections that we're getting is that, we do think healthcare costs overall are going to be up around 4 3/4. We have fully funded our pension obligations over time. We're really proud of that. And we do believe that certainly is an ongoing cost for us that we want to continue to meet our full obligation in that area. So overall, even though it is an over 2% increase, the town contribution, including capital improvements, the request is only at 1.38%. So last year, the town contributed $26,405,308. The request from the school committee this year is at $26,769,218. So that's $363,910 increase, or again, 1.38%, which I believe is less than the rate of inflation. And so, really, when you look at the overall burden on the school department between salaries and benefits, this is kind of right in line with the bulk of the increase that is coming from our contractual obligations. So one of the questions that we often get is around the undesignated fund balance. So I wanted to be really clear with you all that the school committee is choosing to use up as much as is allowable, the fund balance, and devote it to keeping the overall costs to the town down. So per the town council resolution, right, and they've really requested that the school committee apply at least 3% of the total budget to asset protection and management. So 3% of the budget is at $971,439. In this year's budget, there is $1,138,050 going towards asset protection and management, or that's the capital fund. The resolution also requests, and I think it's just great thinking, reserve 2% of the total budget for emergencies. 2% of the budget is $662,630, and apply the remainder to the operating fund. So anything that's left after those two expenses, apply it to the operating fund. That's what the school committee chose to do. And that is at $1,197,433. Because the school committee chose to do that, that is keeping the town contribution down to potentially 1.3%. And again, really applying that fund balance to make sure that the burden on taxpayers is low. So overall, how will the budget be funded? Well, the town appropriation, the request is at 1.38% or 363,910. We anticipate state aid will be roughly flat. I will say this could go down. We just don't know. Okay, and right now there is no clarity on what is coming out of Providence in terms of what the schools will be getting. So we are hoping for flat state aid. I'm just hoping it doesn't go down. As I indicated before, we're using the fund balance both for capital and for operating. So that's at $1,138,050 and $1,197,433. We do anticipate that our tuitions in will go up a little bit, up to about $800,000. And we do anticipate that our Medicaid and other revenue will remain flat. So the overall increase is at 2.63, but again, the request of the town is at 1.38. So I will say again, that schools, if you have strong schools, you really have a strong community. And, I'm appreciative to the town council for their support over time. Our schools are in a place where we really are in a leadership role in supporting the families of Narragansett who have children. We are in daily communication with them. We are monitoring them. We're making mental health interventions for them. We're making sure that our students, our families have food. We're in touch with our children literally every day, including weekends. And so, this is an incredibly important community support as we go forward. What we also know is that when a town invests in their schools, that attracts people to our town. So we know that, and I've heard many times the town council that they want families to be moving to Narragansett. People aren't going to move to Narragansett if you don't have strong schools. We think that we do have incredibly strong schools. We think we have room for growth. We think investing in that growth is important, and this is an opportunity to do that. We also know that high quality schools, high quality CTE programs will bring more companies to Narragansett. We have lots of companies that are interested in our graduates. We have lots of companies that want to hire students right out of our CTE programs, particularly our agri-science program. And we know that companies want to be here for that. We also know that well-maintained, safe, and secure facilities are incredibly important, right? And so we don't want to get into a place where our facilities are falling apart. We don't want to get in a catch-up mode. Want to continue to do that. We also think that it sends a message, and sends a message around what we value and how we support our families. And we have to have great teachers. And so if we don't invest in our teachers, the whole thing falls apart. We do have great teachers, and it's by design. We have great people here, but we support them, we work with them, we train them, and we make sure that they have everything that they need, not only for materials, but for their own learning. And that partnership has been invaluable. And finally, we also know that it's not a blank check, that we have to be very thoughtful about the allocation of our resources, that we try to be strategic in everything that we do, that we try to innovate, but we also try to be thoughtful about where we invest our dollars, because we recognize it's the community's money. We recognize that it is taxpayer dollars that we're investing into our schools. And as such, it has to benefit certainly the children in our schools, but the community as a whole. So, I certainly want to take the time to answer any questions that you all have. And so, what I will do is I will stop the screen share for now. If there's a slide that you want me to go back to, I'll share the screen again and answer any questions that you might have.
Right, does anyone have comments or questions regarding the school budget from the council at this time?
Pete, could you give us a little bit of, what are you talking about for the renovation of the auditorium? What does that need? A little bit more detail, please.
Sure. So we are in the process of kind of analyzing, the total cost. What we anticipate is that the full cost will be around a little bit over $1 million. What it does need is, a thorough rehab in terms of the stage. So the stage is not ADA accessible. If you can think about just going in there, it's very dark. It hasn't really been touched in a very long time. And so overall, it needs kind of a total restructuring in terms of not just the infrastructure to be able to do lighting, all those pieces. We have to redo the stage. It looks like the seats can stay, quite honestly. I think those were done, but we have to redo also the accessibility for students with disabilities who may need to be able to get onto the stage. And we need to redo the entire sound and lighting system so that it's much more clear. Right now, it is very difficult for our music program and for our theater program to really make use of that facility.
All right, anything from Patrick? Do you have anything?
No, I'm all set.
Jesse?
Yeah, I do have a few questions and comments. So Peter, just wanted to thank you for all your time and dedication to the kids, to all the families of town, as well as the administrators and the teachers. This, it's something that I am involved in every day with my kids, and I can tell that the passion is definitely there. And you and I spoke a few weeks before things got as serious as they are now, and we talked about how prepared the school system was for this sort of situation and distance learning. And you had told me that, you guys had a plan, you were prepared. And I think that definitely has shown to be true, because it's been a pretty, relatively seamless transition. We all have our ups and downs with our kids individually, but in terms of the communication, it's definitely been there. So thank you for everything. But for my questions, one question I have is actually related to the tech involved with doing the distance learning. So we use a lot of different vendors, a lot of different systems kind of in conjunction with each other. What kind of expense is the school system incurring to use those subscriptions and those services right now? Is it a big expense? Is it free? Is it, just more minor?
I think probably, not to be facetious, but the answer to that is kind of like yes, right? So, so there are some subscription services that have made it free for the time of the pandemic. We have invested in many of those services over time. And so for grades 5 through 12, we use what's known as PowerSchool Learning. And that has been for us a learning management system that is integrated with our student information system. So what that allows us to do, for example, is if a student is doing some learning in social studies and they're getting a grade and they get that grade within social studies and the grade is put in, it then automatically goes into their report card. And we get an early warning system if a student is not performing adequately, based on their grades and all those different pieces. That's really grades 5 through 12. We never really had the vision or the desire to have kids be so very digital grades K through 4. And so while we do have things like Lexia Learning and we have other services where we were subscribed on a minor basis just for intervention or for some students, we've had to ramp that up for all students. Right now, we are not getting significantly charged for the expansion of those programs. I would say that one of the things that we have to plan for costs is narrowing the number of services that we're using and also deepening our subscription to them so it becomes a regular piece. What we anticipate is in the fall, there is a very likely chance that we will have some time in school and some time out of school. And so what we want to be able to do is to narrow the feedback that we've gotten from parents, which is really valid. And we keep putting out surveys to parents and to kids so that we can keep getting better at what we're doing, is that there's too many programs, right? And so we had a plan in place for sure. What we would do if we had a do-over, and I don't really want to do over, but as we plan for the future, we know that we have to go narrower and deeper, and that is going to cost something going forward. Does that answer your question, Jesse? I'm happy to explain more.
Yeah, I was just curious about how substantial that cost was. So you have that built into the technology budget?
We do.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And I would agree with, kind of narrowing those down so you could stay within like one or two portals as opposed to 4 or 5.
Yes.
For multiple reasons. The only other question I have is about, and you had mentioned this kind of briefly, class sizes and the possibility of being forced to go much smaller with those classes in the fall. So for instance, if it's, kind of mandated that our class sizes are 50% of the size that they currently are, what are we doing to prepare for that in terms of cost? Because I can see that we're actually cutting one teaching position right now.
We are. So that's a great question. What we would have to do is, if we had to go to smaller class sizes in that way, what we would anticipate the guidance with that would be is that it would be smaller class sizes, but alternating days. So schools across the state don't have the capacity to just cut everything in half and have everyone meet every day, right? And so what we would say is maybe an AM session and a PM session. It may be a 1 day on, 1 day off. And so we do think that we'll have the adequate staffing in order to accommodate smaller class sizes with a different schedule that blends distance learning and smaller groups. What I am actually really worried about, Jesse, is having the staffing to plug the holes for the students that arrive back at school significantly behind. And so while we know that our teachers and our special educators and our interventionists are doing everything they can to keep kids up to speed, while we have over 90% attendance, we still have 10% of the kids that, they're spotty, right? We do have some kids and some families that are struggling in such a way that, distance learning is not really working really well for them. It's really hard to teach a 6-year-old to read, over a computer. And then if you have a family that is struggling on top of that with young children, these are kids that we're going to have to try to get caught up really fast. That's going to take a lot of one-to-one work. And that's the thing that I'm worried about staffing.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely see that as a reality. It's just kind of everything that kind of immediately stopped in terms of the progress some of the younger kids were making. It's not a full stop, but parents are not the same caliber as a professional teacher. So
our parents are doing a great job. I just have to say they are doing a great job, and they have been in very close touch with us, and they have been communicating with our teachers. But again, we have really, really great early childhood teachers, and we have a setting and an expertise that's really focused on that early literacy and early numeracy. So we know we're going to have to do some catch-up work with them, and that's going to be a priority for us in the fall.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Mr. Lima.
Yeah, I don't have any questions at this point, Matt. I'm happy to hear that the auditorium, which I think is a big part of the school, it's one of the largest areas that we can indoor house things not only for the school, but as Dr. Cummings mentioned before at one of our earlier meetings, that he encourages the rest of the town to be able to use that facility if it's not being used. And I believe the capacity in that is, am I right by saying, Dr. Cummings, maybe almost 500?
Yes, I think it's over 500.
Right. So we don't really have anything that large that we can house people indoors, and having that resource and having it updated and bringing it to where it should be, to me, is very important, because I think a lot of our town for the future, with what we see going on now, is if we did have to have a group of 100 people or 50 people and you needed to social distance, that place would be able to handle it. And so I'm happy to see that they're maintaining the schools and they're want to keep up on the buildings. I think that's very important to house the students, and the parents and people of the town, I'm sure, appreciate that we're taking care of our facilities. So I thank you all for that.
Hey, Dr. Cummings, I wanted to thank you and Karen Hagan for putting that together and presenting that for us. And I think it went pretty smoothly. So thank you. If there's nothing else from the council, I think we'd be able to move to the municipal portion of the budget.
All right, great. Well, thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity. And as always, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to chat, answer any further questions that you have. We are really proud of our schools and appreciate your support along the way.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris,
Yes,
you're on.
we're on. So I'm going to share my screen also. Here we go. Okay, so thank you, Council President Mannix, and good evening to you, council members and fellow participants. Tonight, I'll be presenting the town manager's proposed 2020-2021 budget. First, I'd like to thank the department heads for all their hard work in completing their budgets. As you know, the department heads work from zero-based budget and have to justify every dollar in the budget process. The town manager has met with the departments many times to review their requests for funding and made his recommendations, which is the budget you have before you tonight. The manager's cuts to the budget is around $1.8 million from the department heads' requests. And this is primarily capital improvements, as the balance of the budget comprised mostly of contractual obligations such as personnel costs, OPEB, pension, debt service, and insurance. The presentation tonight is focused on the general fund because it's primarily funded with taxpayer dollars. Increase is approximately $1.3 million or 2.1% for a total of $62.3 million. Of the $62.3 million, 57% or $35.6 million is for town operations, and 43% or $26.6 million is for school operations. The other major funds, such as water, wastewater, and beach, are funded primarily by their own revenue resources. These funds will be reviewed in more detail by the town council during the budget work sessions and are not presented tonight. So what's notable in the budget this year? There's a decrease in funding for capital projects. We continue to fund OPEB and pension at 100% of the actuarial determined contributions. The tax levy is at a maximum of 4% excluding motor vehicles and 3.63% including motor vehicles. There is zero use of unassigned fund balance reserve for the operating budget. And there is use of fund balance reserve to cover the capital projects, and it leaves the balance at approximately 11.8%, well within town policy range. As with Dr. Cummings, there are some 2020-2021 considerations for COVID. We were very conservative in our revenues. The state aid is based on 2019 to 2020 allocations due to the state revenue uncertainties. And to support this decision, we used Rhode Island General Laws 35-3-19. And then also the hotel and meal revenues are decreased to the 19-20 state allocations, but this could be less depending on when Rhode Island reopens. Also, the current market conditions cause concern for meeting the 2021 expectations in our investment income and valuation, including OPEB and pension. $2.8 million was moved to non-spendable fund balance during the 2019 audit, reducing the unassigned fund balance from 16% to 11.8%. The medical and dental benefits projected with an increase of 8% and 3% respectively. The medical claims related to COVID event may increase for the 21-22 budget. That's also a consideration to watch for. We are also exploring all avenues to collect the reimbursements for COVID-related expenses, and you can read the funding sources down below. Those are the ones we're aware of currently. This is the depiction of general fund allocations. As you can see, most of them are the personnel costs and also transfers. There is about, whoops, I licked my finger, sorry about that. Non-discretionary funds are about 91.6%. That leaves only 8.4% for discretionary spending, which is very low. This is a chart that shows the capital projects, and we're about $1,700 less than it was last year, with a $2.24 million for the general funds capital projects. This is a listing of the capital projects that's itemized, and you can read those at your leisure. A lot of them happen every year. Nothing really new on those. And now for the impact on the taxes, the proposed tax rate for residential property, $10.66 per thousand, and the commercial rate is a proposed $14.39. The fiscal year 19-20 rates are $10.23 and $14.33 per thousand. So the tax levy increase is about $1,949,429, which represents a 3.63% more over the current year. So for a home valued at $500,000, this is a proposed tax increase of $215 per year, approximately, or $17.92 per month. What happens next is the town council work sessions that are proposed for May 6th and May 13th if necessary. Second public hearing is scheduled for June 1st, as well as the adoption of the capital improvement plan resolution and the first reading of the budget ordinance. The second reading of the budget ordinance and the adoption of the budget is scheduled for June 15th. And that's that. So if you have any questions, or if the town manager would like to make any comments, I'm available for questions.
Well, thank you. First of all, I know that you spent a lot of time on this, and you were involved with the budget with Laura Kenyon last year, but now on your own doing it. So thank you. And I know that it's been a little different this year because you and the town manager have been in the last month and a half having to keep going back to that capital, those capital items. So I know that it's just a totally different than when we kind of have our general operating and we look it back from the prior year. We have some unanticipated costs, and we have different things going on in town hall that we used to, and certain people spending more time on the job and others spending less. So I know that it's just been very, it's been something we've had to be flexible with. So thank you for that. I'll go down with the council members if they have comments or questions for Chris. And then Jim's going to weigh in as well before we go to the public hearing. So, and Jill.
Chris,
Yes.
just a quick question for you. I mean, that's an increase of residential property tax by 43 cents. And I appreciate you breaking it out for the $500,000. Have you taken a look at if we could do something a little bit differently? If we could take a look at the investment properties in town and perhaps tax them at a commercial rate, what the difference would be for that, and take a little burden off the residents? It's kind of tough. I know it's 43 cents, but look at what's happening in the world of the state right now in this town. So many people don't have jobs. You're lucky if you have one. Every penny counts. And I know that how the residents feel about the investment property. So I'm wondering if that might be an option for us to look at. And we could gain potentially more revenue that way. And maybe we could even give some small businesses a little tax relief.
Sure, I can jot that down. We can look into that.
Mr. Murray.
Yes, I think I can answer Jill's question. The investment properties, like as some of the winter rentals are residential. You can't put them in a category of commercial. That would, you'd have to change the whole tax structure and get approval from the state, something like that.
We could look into it. I don't know if that's necessary though, Patrick.
I believe it is, but anyway, this is a question for James and Chris. The COVID-19, I know the state's getting like over $1 billion. God knows what they're gonna do with it. But is that money, if it gets trickled down to the town of Narragansett, can that money be used to offset some of this tax increase? Or, cover some of the expenses from COVID, like downtime and,
It will help with, it can help with the expenses. There's more details coming on that. That's still up in the air exactly how it's going to be allocated. We're hoping to get some of that, those expenses covered. It cannot and will not be replacing any lost revenue. They've been quite clear on that.
right,
There may be another stimulus coming that might look at that, but right now they cannot replace lost revenue. But there may be some expenses that we could be reimbursed for, along with the FEMA, Rhode Island EMA, and some fire grants that the chief is applying for.
so could any of that money used to bring down that, the tax rate,
Nothing right
the
now.
mill rate?
It's
no.
COVID-related expenditures right now.
Right, so it's pretty restrictive. okay.
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Pugh.
Thanks. Chris, I do have a question. And hopefully you're the right person to ask this. If not, just let me know. But it's about home assessments. So I know that we had started that process for assessments earlier this year. I think you could correct me if I'm wrong, but that was put on hold completely?
Yes, the revaluation.
Yes, reevaluation.
That's on hold temporarily. They're waiting to hear what the governor has to say May 8th, I believe, and then we'll revisit it with Mr. Tierney to see when that will start back up for the revaluations, which won't really affect any of our calculations until the following year out.
That's for next year. If they had happened earlier this year on schedule, would they have been applied at all to this year? Or was that always going to be
No.
for next year? Always
That's all
next year?
next year.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lima.
Hi, Chris. So as you mentioned, we're at 11.8% and 1 point, we're almost at 16. And I feel that the town is comfortable when it's at 14 to 16%. We're only about 1.8% away from being at 10%. Is 10%, once you get to that 10%, does that become a critical issue with the state and us?
Well, it is in our charter, so we would have to develop a plan on how to recoup and rebuild that fund balance to within its range that we have in our policies.
So the comforting point in our town would be between the 14 and 16%.
Correct. And that's kind of why we went with using zero use of fund balance for operating this year.
Right, because we're very close to being at the
Yes.
critical point. What would the 2.8 do if it was in our coffers? Where would it put us?
We would be around the 16%. Again, that would play out on what people used on fund balance for this current year, the end of 2020. But we can project that we would have had approximately 16%,
Right,
which would have been at the high level.
okay, so we're not where we should be and we're close to the bottom.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think we're going to go to Jim to talk about what changes that he's been in the budget. I know, as I've sat in different budget hearings over the years, in this environment, I think Jim has already made cuts to this budget. I think I'm going to be looking to make more. in this budget, because we have people at home who are either they've lost their job, or they've gone on reduced salary at their job. Some people have been furloughed from their job, and they get that. And so I think it's our duty to keep the taxes. My goal is to have a zero. I mean, that's what I'm going to be looking at. I've been going through the budget. So I'm hoping that we can do that or get as close to that as we can. So Jim has started that ball rolling and made some cuts, but we've got to really look at what we can do to make that 3.6 number come down, because that's the increase on the taxpayers right now. So with that being said, I'm going to go to Jim. A lot of times the finance director just does a presentation, but as I said, this year is different. And because Jim and her have been going back and forth so much over the last few weeks, I thought it would be good for him to go forward. And just Jim, I was going to just mention on that FEMA, you've been asked to keep track of COVID related expenses similar to a FEMA reimbursement, but that's still not something that would affect this budget because it's still in its infancy phases. You know, it's not a hurricane or a tornado where it's more black and white, but just want to make sure I've characterized that correctly for everybody, that we would get money back from that potentially, but it wouldn't be before June 30th of this year. And then I want you to just talk about, kind of what you've encountered with the budget in this cycle. Thanks, Chris, for everything. Thank you, Chris Spagnoli.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I don't want to repeat what Chris already told everyone and displayed with the PowerPoint. We had worked on that quite a bit. The version that you received tonight, the budget, was probably the third revision of it, because when it was initially drafted, the first budget, it was before the pandemic hit. And as we gleaned more information from the state about state aid that we may not be getting, and the state still hasn't informed us what type of aid we'll be receiving. And then, of course, we've incurred the COVID-related expenses that we will be seeking reimbursement for. And as far as the stimulus money goes, it'll be going usually through the state, and then they'll determine how it's distributed to the individual communities. So that's still uncertain at this time. But we did, over the course of the three revisions, remove 1,811,000 and change from the budgets that were originally submitted by the department heads. And we met repeatedly, and then a few last-ditch efforts right at the end to see what was absolutely necessary before finalizing it and getting it to all of you. I didn't get a chance to thank Dr. Cummings. Some of our employees, as you know, are working from home now remotely because of this COVID-19. And Dr. Cummings worked together with myself and Dan Holland, and he was able to supply us with the sufficient number of laptops for the employees to continue to be productive working remotely. And they continue still to do so. And they will be for several weeks to come. And I want to acknowledge Dr. Cummings for that. He's been working quite well with us on the budget and assisting with the computers, and his staff has been cross-training between doing regular town functions and school functions, and it's appreciated. As far as the budget goes, I think it's a solid budget that's prepared to give to the council to make your recommendations and direction. And I look forward to hearing from you on it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So briefly, this is a public hearing, so we're going to be going to the public. I'm going to have Terry help me out with that before she has a list of people, and I'm going to ask each of them to give their name and address before they speak. But before that, if the council members, I'll just run quickly through if they have anything, now that we've heard from all three of our principals on this. I'll just run quickly through the council. Or if we want to just jump to the public. Jill?
I'm set. Thank you, Matt.
Patrick?
Yeah, I'm all set for now.
Jesse?
No questions. Thanks.
And Rick?
I'm all set, thank you.
All right, so we're going to start with, and as I said, I'm going to call on you. Dan is going to unmute you, so wait for that to take place. Dan, are you out there still? Dan. So Dan will unmute. The first person on the list from From Terry, we have Lori Kelly, so I'm gonna ask her to come on and state her name and address for the record.
Yeah, I actually don't have anything right now that I'd like to comment on. Maybe you can circle back to me. Thank you.
Okay, next on the list, all right, if you could unmute this person, Dan, would be Meg Rogers. These are in alphabetical order.
I will not be speaking tonight. Thank you.
Okay, and next in order, we have Karen Shipshilowitz. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Karen Shepshelowitz, 63 Wanda Street. Well, obviously, the big elephant in the room is the pandemic and the uncertainty of what's going to be in front of us next year. And things might be very different than it's ever been before. So it's not the normal transition we have into the next year's budget. And I have a lot of concerns that you probably can't answer due to the uncertainty. But one of the things that's really on my mind is, first of all, the library budget, which was slashed by 50%. And now everyone's expected to do a certain cut into their budget, which the library is going to be a constant factor. It's not something that's going to disappear. And obviously, if we have to do more social distancing, we're going to need larger rooms and more ways of handling things from a distance point of view. The other question I have is for seniors, being a senior in the town and really worrying about what's going to become of the seniors and the residents in the current year due to if we have to keep social distancing, and it's obviously causing a huge gap in all of our lives. But you know, when I start hearing plans to cut, maybe open the beach to like beach parking to 50 cars. And for one thing, I have very bad arthritis. There's no way I can walk down the beach, even though I live a couple of blocks from the beach. And there's also, it seems to me, the first person to get there is going to be the one that gets the parking places. And I'd like to know what the plans are as far as the summer approaching, to prioritize the residents and to keep them safe to be able to use the beach, if at all. And I know you don't have a magic answer, but obviously we are expecting a spike in the pandemic cases once the floodgates open. And as it gets closer to the summer, it's very concerning because seniors are the most vulnerable in this whole population, as well as other people that might have immune suppressed issues. But it's not first come, first served. It's going to be how you make a strategic plan to handle the citizens that want to be able to use the beach or be able to sit on the beach. Like I, for one, couldn't go to a beach and not have a chair. I know that's one of the things that's been discussed, not bringing a blanket, not bringing a chair. Well, one size doesn't fit all. And it's very anxiety producing. Also, the fact that 5 of my children and their families live out of state. And the summer is the only time they usually all can come and visit. And I don't know what's going to become of that whole situation, but it's very concerning to me.
Thank you. We're concerned about the Beach Enterprise Fund on many fronts. The big thing, I think, on the beach, and I, again, don't want to speak out of turn, but I think we'll probably have more information at our next regular council meeting because the anticipated lifting of the May 8th stay-at-home order changes it. And that's what I know that Steve and Jim are looking at. But that has, we want to see if that happens. The
Yeah, but
calendar.
Matt, you're talking about the enterprise fund. I'm talking about people's lives and how this is going to impact their lives, not just the money that the beach is going to bring in. And it can't be reduced to just dollars and cents.
Thank you. All right, thank you. The next person we have is Gail Shields. If Dan, you can get Gail Shields set up and name and address for the record. Mrs. Shields, are you out there? Terry, while we're waiting, have you been able to get everything down that you need?
Hey, yes, I have. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
I just sent a message to Mrs. Shields to see if she could hear us.
All right, in the meantime, I'm going to go down the list and we'll come back to Mrs. Shields. Stanley Wojciechowski. Stan, if you're going to testify, please state your name and address for the record.
I think I like these meetings better. Too quiet,
Yeah, that quiet, right?
no controversy.
Matt, can you
Yeah.
hear me now?
There's a lot of quiet now.
I'm gonna mute now.
No, but, I mean, I said there's a lot of quiet now in general, though.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Hear you.
Okay. Stanley's not listed here at all.
No,
Okay.
Unless we have a telephone number for him.
no, I don't have one.
Okay.
It might be collect. Are you accepting phone calls? No. All right.
What, anything, Dan, on Gail Shields right now?
Nope, nothing's changed.
So is she unable to get the microphone to speak? Is that the issue?
Haven't heard anything back from Terry's chat, and her listing here doesn't even allow me to unmute her. So it's like she's connected to video, but not audio.
So what we'll do is we'll definitely keep her on the list to speak at the next public hearing. Is there anyone who did not contact the town clerk in advance who would like to speak at the public hearing from the public?
Dr. Alba has his hand raised.
All right, so when he gets on, if you could have him, please, Dr. Alba, state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Dr. Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace, Narragansett, Rhode Island, 02882. I felt the budget for the school was outstanding. It brings great pride to all the residents in Narragansett in regards to the great work that the teachers, faculty, and staff are doing for our town and our students. So I wanted to give kudos to everyone involved. The entire school department deserve accolades and a pat on the back, and all the students who are doing homeschooling and all those teachers, dedicated teachers. This week is National Teacher Appreciation Week. So I'd like to give praise to all the outstanding teachers in Narragansett. There was one comment about taxing, I guess, rentals at a different rate. And I know that if they're not, they don't get the homestead exemption. So I know that that tax rate goes up. But I think there should be some kind of difference between a year-round rental and also those who are seasonal or summer. Because if people rent it year-round, they're going to have more stable, usually a family that will be renting it throughout the winter and summer. So I don't think they should necessarily, if there is going to be an increase in tax on rentals, I think the year-round rentals should maybe, they're not going to be taxed like they get in the homestead exemption, but I don't think they should be taxed at the same rate as people who are doing the week-to-week or the B&B. So that would be my one question. I think the woman who's in charge of doing the assessment or doing the reassessments or the re-tax structure, she was thinking about doing a recalculation based on Jill's question, but it'd be nice if she could just consider what I mentioned, because usually when you have a family who's renting year round, you get that stability in town. I think that's a great thing. So another concern I would have is I don't know if there are going to be restrictions on our Narragansett Town Beach, and that's going to hurt our income. I don't know if the state or if the federal government might be able to be reached out to see if that is in effect, if we might be able to get some kind of monies back from the federal level to help our town out. So that would be a concern, because that's a great source of revenue. And also, if you all can advocate for our restaurants, we know that in Narragansett, a lot of our restaurants make much of their monies during the summertime, and our winter time, a lot of times they struggle to survive in our winter. And if they can't make a decent income this summer, some of them might be in very difficult situation to even survive. And we want to make sure that the governor, she said today, they're going to be allocating monies, federal monies or state monies, to our restaurants. So whatever any of you could do to advocate to get monies and resources to help them out, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Matt?
Thank you.
Matt?
Yeah.
I just wanted to include one thing for Dr. Alba. My intent is to have it be only seasonal rentals, not year-round rentals. And one of the reasons I did not vote for the homestead a couple of years ago is because it didn't include the year-round rentals. So I agree. I'd love to have more year-round people renting here, and I certainly would not want to tax the property owners for them.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill.
It's not really a budgetary comment, but I've been advocating and been very hopeful and optimistic that we'll be able to be opening up, more quickly than we have been. I think a lot of people are feeling very locked down, and we're very hopeful for that. But really not a budgetary comment. But I just wanted to let you know that, and we'll really kind of make that ball start rolling after May 8th. But anyone else who did not sign up in advance who would like to speak on the budget? All right, so if there's nothing else from the council, I'm going to take a motion to continue the public hearing on the proposed budget for the 2020-2021 fiscal year to June 1st, 2020.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right. Just for, I know it's a scheduling thing, but just a discussion. So then we would have our work sessions in between these two hearings, and that we want to give Chris Spagnoli, our finance director, as much time as she can to get the numbers, because in the work sessions is where we start to roll up our sleeves and actually jump into the budget. So all in favor, I'm going to start with Ms. Lawler.
Jill Lawler, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Yes, aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. I'm going to look for a motion to schedule a budget work session on May 6th at 6 p.m. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is it second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right, motion made by Jill, seconded by Rick. All in favor, we'll start with Ms. Lawler,
Jill Lawler, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Aye.
Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. And then finally, a motion to schedule a budget work session on May 13th at 6 p.m. Is there a motion?
So moved. Jill Lawler.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All right. We'll start, all in favor, we'll start with Ms. Lawler.
Jill Lawler, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
Mr. Lima,
Richard Lima, aye.
Matt Mannix, aye. Excuse me, motion approved 5-0. And I look for a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion?
So moved. Jill Lawler.
Is there a second?
Richard Lima, second.
All in favor, start with Ms. Lawler,
Jill Lawler, aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Pugh,
Jesse Pugh, aye.
and Mr. Lima.
Richard Lima, aye.
And Matt Mannix, aye. Motion approved 5-0. Good night, everybody. God bless. Stay safe.